Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome today to Angela from Majesticares. She is the COO. Very excited to have you on board. Thanks for agreeing to talk to us today, Angela.
Thank you for having me, Dan.
So today, Angela, we're going to talk about a topic. We're going to be quite positive. It's getting warmer. The vaccination program's going well. So we're going to talk about happiness. Angela, I asked you what your specialist subject was, and you said it was about keeping people happy. So I think that's a great topic. Often lots of stressful, negative things we talk about. So it'd be good to talk about some positive things. So Angela, why don't you start off by giving us a bit of a background of yourself and maybe even how you got to where you were today, and particularly into the care sector, if that's okay?
Yeah, no problem. So I've worked in the care sector for quite a few years now, and fell into it, but it was an accident. So I was doing a gap year, and my sisters were working as carers in a care home, and they had an activities coordinator position for 12 hours a week. I was working in a pub in the evenings. I was a good barmaid, went along and just loved it. I loved making the people happy. Actually, and I can remember the first resident I ever came into contact with, and sitting in a chair and just singing "Oh Oh Antonio" for sort of an hour, because that's all she wanted to do, just sing this song over and over again. But the laugh, the belly laugh that she was doing it while we did it, and actually it's quite addictive to make a difference and make people happy. So that's how my journey started. It took a few years to get to where I am now, and I've done a lot of jobs in between. I've cooked Sunday lunch for 45 people, which was a complete disaster when the chef didn't turn up and that sort of thing. But no, worked in care homes ever since, left being a home manager in 2007. Still miss it. Still really miss it. But make a difference in different ways now, I think. But the thing that still gets me up every morning, and the reason that I still do it, is because, Patience, this lady's name was, but, I still remember Patience, and I still want to make people laugh like Patience did.
Are you willing to give us a little vocal performance?
Oh God, I don't know if I can remember it. How's it go? Oh, oh, Antonio, he's gone away. You see, everybody will know it. But I suppose now they're singing Daniel O'Donnell in care homes. It was a long time ago.
Yeah, I mean, I must admit, you're my first guest that ever sang a song, so that's there was always a first. And then and you worked in a bar. We had a previous guest on that used to run a bar as well. So do you think that's just by luck, or do you think there's any similarities there?
Do you know what? It's customer facing, isn't it? It's about making people happy. And certainly when you pull a good pint, and I'm a Derbyshire girl, so when you pull a good pint with a good head, you certainly make people happy. The punters go away with a smile on the face, that's for sure. So, it's keeping people happy. It doesn't matter what profession you're in. It's it's all about delivery.
Fair enough. And when you what does being a COO mean? What does that, for those people out there that maybe aren't familiar with that term, what does that mean?
It's difficult. So a lot of organisations have a COO and a CEO. We don't have a CEO. It's just me, and then there's two gentlemen that own the business that act as the directors and the chairman. So it's a little bit of a jack of all trades. So you have to know a bit about everything. You have to be able to sort of coordinate things. So what's going on in the homes, and what's our occupancy like, how much money are we making? But predominantly it's about how are we working with the people in our homes. So are they happy? Are we giving them a good service? Are we delivering good quality care? And, I take personal responsibility for that, as well as sort of legal responsibility with the CQC. So yeah, it's a busy job, but it gives me a lot of variety.
Good. And how do you make people happy?
For me, the first rule of making anybody happy is understanding who they are and what they want. So, for me, we use a philosophy at Majesticare, which is called Continue Being Me.
Right.
So we run that with our residents and with our staff. And the reason that we run this philosophy is that we sat in a meeting one day, and we were talking about what would we want if we were in a care home? What would we want? And if we worked in a care home, what would we want?
Yeah.
So, and I just sort of sat there and I said, well, I just want to be me. I'd want people to accept me for who I was, whether I was a resident or a team member. I would like to bring a bit of myself to work. You know, if I had to work in a place that didn't let me sing, you know, or laugh or smile for a bit, it just wouldn't work for me. So that, you know, I would just want to be myself, whether I was working or living in a care home. And I think that's where the continue be me philosophy came from, because actually if you allow people to just stay themselves, then they're at their happiest, I think. What makes you happy, Danny? Are you a football fan or?
It doesn't work that way, Angela. I ask the questions around here, but what makes me happy? What do I like doing? I like learning new things and meeting new people. That's what I do. I'm a curious person, but
So you would be my favourite resident, because we'd be thinking, you know, what does Dan already know?
yeah.
And you know, we find out that actually, you know, you know a bit of Spanish, but you don't know it very well. And then I'd talk to you and say, you know, what else would you like to learn? And then I would make that happen for you. If you wanted, you know, last week somebody wants to meet Daniel O'Donnell, we made that happen. Somebody who was a long-term Crystal Palace fan,
Yeah.
you know, we got all of the players to do a video and we surprised the resident with it, and it was personal messages from lots of people who were players perhaps when he was watching, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think I'd like to be Gary Barlow. He has a good life, doesn't he?
I'd love, but I like Gary Barlow.
Yeah.
He's a good singer, Dan. Are you as
Yeah,
good
he's a good singer, actually, isn't he? He's a good singer.
So yeah, it's about finding out what makes people happy and making it happen, I think.
And how do you sort of, I mean, obviously I can get the vibe from you that that's pretty easy when you're in the room, but how do you make sure, you know, you've got a number of homes, haven't you? You haven't just got the one. So how do you make sure your team are continuing that ethos when you're not there?
So we start at the beginning. So we have a very clear vision at Majesticare, and that vision starts at recruitment stage, and we have very clear values as well. So our vision is create outstanding places where people love to live and work. And that's not outstanding for CQC, that's outstanding for people that live and work there. And values. So happiness is one of our values.
Oh.
And we recruit for values. So we don't necessarily scour a CV. We like to meet people, talk to people. Before COVID, we did something called Star Catcher,
right?
Which was if people were up to it, not everybody is, but if they were up to it, we used to get everybody in a room, and you know, one of us from the team would be there and sort of say, "Hi, you know, I'm Angela, right? You know, who's up for a game? Who wants to play a game?" And the first thing we'd do in the interview was play a game. And you can tell straight away, you know, you start to see the dynamics of the people that are in the room. Some people are reacting very well with each other. Some people are sort of backing off and not feeling very comfortable. And that doesn't mean to say that they haven't got our values. And it doesn't mean to say that they won't fit in well to the team. But you can start to see potentially where they might excel in different roles, as an example. We then ask people, you know, lots of questions, and, you know, what makes you happy is actually one of our questions, and it's just amazing how much information you can get from somebody and how much you can learn from somebody. So we start with values at recruitment. Our onboarding, in between recruitment and their start date, we send everybody like a welcome pack with gifts and Majesticares mask and stuff. So we start to make friends with them. We send them a welcome card, and we just start to build a relationship with people before they even start, because then they sort of get an idea of who we are.
What sort of games do you play? Like board games?
No, like word association is a good game. Or, you know, remove a chair from a circle and see literally how competitive people get when there's only one chair left. Absolutely. I literally have seen people wrestled to the floor. We have to stop it there and do a risk assessment. But
do you encourage people to wrestle each other at work, or is that frowned upon?
No, it's not normal. But we encourage people to be themselves and have a little bit of fun, as long as it's safe, obviously. But yeah, so we play something called Billy Boo. So you would stand in a circle, one person would be in the middle and say Billy Boo, and then the other person has to say it before you finish saying it. You might have somebody that walks into the middle of the circle and says, I am a tree. And then the next person would go, I am a bird. And then the next person might go, I'm a cage.
Right.
We'll go, I'll keep the cage. So the cage stays in the middle. And then the next person might be, I'm a cage. And the next person might say, I'm a prisoner. So it's all about associating the word with and just seeing how it goes. And it's very funny. It always ends up getting rude, though.
For those people that are old enough to remember, it's a bit like Mallet's Mallet, I guess. Do you remember that?
You mean Timmy Mallet?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was word association.
Yeah.
But they're probably people that are either too old or too young to even know what that is. But
yeah, probably. But it really it loosens people up a lot too. And I think when you do then sit there, because obviously you still do need to have the serious sort of, talk about, do you understand safeguarding and all of those sorts of things. But I think you get a much more open, because they're so relaxed with you. Interviews are more like a chat and an information gathering, rather than sitting behind a desk and making somebody feel quite nervous.
Yeah.
And actually then they don't present as they would do in a normal situation.
That's fair enough. I think it's it's a great approach. What about, not to sort of dumb it down, not to kind of put a dampener on things here, but obviously the last year or so has been quite difficult and it's quite hard to have fun. How do you maintain happiness during challenge, maybe not just COVID, but just like during stressful or challenging times? How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's been hard, but it's actually been a real focus for us. The last 12 months have been horrific, and there's been a lot of sad times, a lot of tears, but you know what, if that's part of who I am, if I need to cry, then that's okay too. So part of being you isn't just about being happy all the time, but it's about feeling that you're in a safe environment, because sometimes that is enough to make you happy.
Yeah.
So keeping everybody safe, making sure we communicate with people a lot. So text messages, we recorded videos that we would send and text out to staff and things that would just sort of say, you know what, we're thinking of you.
Yeah.
We wrote handwritten thank you cards to everybody, which didn't cost a fortune. I'd got repetitive strain injury when it had done, and so, other people, but it was worth it, saying a personal thank you to everybody. We got everybody a special mask that they can wear, and we didn't just send it to them, we sent one for all of their families as well, so we found out how many children they'd got and that sort of thing. So I think people feel happy if they feel valued. Right. And it's not all about laughing, and it's not all about fun. It's about feeling content, feeling safe, feeling appreciated. A simple thank you goes a long way.
Yeah, because it's very easy to sort of, obviously we had a bit of a light-hearted chat there, but it's very easy to sort of dismiss the word happiness with just messing around, but it's not, right? You're talking about something different to that, something more than that.
Happiness is something that is within us, isn't it? It's not, we can all laugh for a moment, a joke that we hear on the TV, but happiness, contentment, safety, security, they're all words that make me happy. Also trusting my family, knowing that I've got them to fall back on. I mean, I'm lucky I've got a big family, but for a lot of people, they haven't got that. And especially, we look at some of our team, and, probably their family might be abroad. So yeah. We're the only family they've got. They've got friends, but we are their family. So we have a responsibility to make people feel happiness. And happiness is a lot of different things. And it's lovely to laugh. But for me, happiness is so much more than that.
And do you go through this explicitly during people's appraisals and their feedback sessions? Like, do you actually focus on these topics specifically?
Yeah, so we call our supervisions just for me moments. So it's an opportunity for that person to just talk about how they're feeling themselves. So it's about them being able to express themselves. It's about being able to reflect on what's happening or happened, and talk about if they're not happy. Get all of the, we're not all happy all the time.
Yeah, sure.
We just have to be able to know how to make people feel as happy as we can, especially at the moment.
How do you deal with someone if they're doing something that makes someone unhappy? So like maybe they're okay with what they're doing, but it's having a negative impact on somebody else. How would you address that?
In the first instance, our policy is to always have an adult conversation. So that's how we induct people, and we sort of say, let's sit down, let's grab a coffee, let's have an adult conversation, let's talk about what's happening here. And there may be mitigating circumstances. That person may be unhappy themselves, and that's why they're making other people happy. So you have to get to the root cause of why that's happening. And you know what? Sometimes there may not be a root cause. It may just be that actually that person's not the right person for your home.
Right.
And if that's the case, then processes have to start. But for me, even if it's going to be a negative process, and you may be looking at asking somebody to go within short service, or starting development plans, or eventually sort of disciplining and dismissing people, it has to start with a conversation. It has to start with, why is this happening? And I don't, I think it's looked on very favourably by sort of tribunals and things like that if you can evidence as an employer that you have sat down and talked to someone about why this is happening, and given them an opportunity to change and an opportunity to make things better, then that's always got to be the best course of action. There's always going to be those that won't change. There's always going to be those that make people unhappy, and that's a different way of doing things. So just because when we talk about happiness and making people happy, that also means being happy with everyone that's around you. And I think I used words like safe, secure, trust, family. You wouldn't put yourself in a situation with somebody if you didn't feel all of those things.
Although I wouldn't necessarily correlate safety with my family. I spent 2 weekends in a row in hospital with the same child. Broke his wrist one week, and then his brother hit him on the head with a golf club the other. So, in theory, it was an accident, but yeah.
You've got to love boys. I'm one of 5 girls, though. It has its different challenges.
Yeah, we don't have any girls in our house, so I don't really understand that. But yeah, lots of pros and cons to all these things. But so just to dial it, the last few minutes, so just to sort of be specific. So for those smaller providers out there, I think you've given some really good points to consider. But what sort of practical steps would you advise people on? Just to try and summarize, to try and adopt some of the learnings and some of the good things that you guys are doing there.
So I think it starts with the job description. I think always make sure that people understand what your expectation is, and also that they understand what their expectation is of you as an employer as well. So expectation, you can't expect somebody to come in and do a good job if you haven't been clear about what that job is that you're wanting them to do. So I think it always starts with a good induction. Make sure that people are confident and competent to do the job that you're asking them to do before you let them off into the world.
Any top tips for a good induction? Everyone says a good induction, but no one really ever says how.
Top tips for good induction is always, and not everybody agrees with me on this, but I actually sometimes hear people say, "Oh, what induction do you do?" And they say, "We have 2 shadow shifts, or we have 3 shadow shifts." For me, it's always about let's sit down, and actually I always feel there's a theory part to being a care worker or a chef or whatever in a care home. Always make sure that you talk about your values in induction, talk about the expectations, talk about the job description, make sure you go through it with them, ask if they've got any questions. Always tick off the normals, so the fire safety, the health and safety. And I think my personal view is that actually let them, if you can afford it, and I know it's a lot, I know it takes a lot of money, but that they should work with someone for at least a couple of weeks. And a trick around that is that, if you're a nursing home, especially, very often people work in twos because, a resident might need two people to assist them.
Yeah.
Always make sure that person is paired up with somebody that's been there for a long time and has got, good practice themselves, rather than pairing them up with somebody that's actually only been there 3 weeks as well. And all they're doing is bumbling their way through. And then you wonder 3 months down the line why it's going wrong. And that.
Do you think they should pair up with the same person for as many shifts as possible, or
I think
mix it up a bit?
Yeah, I think to start with, for the first week, the same person as much as possible, because I think they would feel more comfortable in that situation. But I also think, and my sort of top tip really, and this is from my personal experience when I worked as an activities coordinator, always when you're training up a carer, make sure they work with the activities coordinator for a day, because activities are everybody's job in a care home. It's not just the activities coordinator's job. Everybody is responsible for making people happy as well. So rather than just going in and making someone's bed, get that person involved in making that bed, get them involved in taking the pots to the dining room, get them involved in laying the tables, all that meaningful stuff that perhaps the activities staff are left to do. I think it's always good practice for carers to work alongside the activities staff and get that real whole home approach.
Interesting, that's great. And what do you wish you knew when you were back in home manager days, or before that you now know, having kind of stepped away and stepped above it for a bit?
Oh God, that's a good question. I've not had that one before. What do I wish I knew?
Or maybe another way, another way of asking it is, what would be the common mistakes you would have made when you were back at the home level rather than sort of managing level? What advice would you give people who
and it is just what I've just sort of said, it's cutting corners, doing things. So, getting that new member of staff in and somebody rings in sick the next day and think, it doesn't matter because I've got that person on induction, they can cover.
Right.
It's cutting corners, because down the line it comes back to bite you. And just being, sometimes as well, allowing people to take a risk. I think probably when I was a home manager and somebody wanted to go to the pub, it would take me a week to sort out whether or not I could make that happen. Whereas now, times have changed, and I think I'd be much more focused on making sure that the outcome for that resident was the right one, and obviously keeping them safe. That goes without saying. But just allowing other people to take risks, allowing people to make mistakes, because actually the best lessons I've learned are the mistakes that I've made. And as long as you learn from them and don't do them again, I think when people make mistakes over and over again, the same mistake over and over again, then that means that they're not learning anything.
Definitely.
So yeah, for me, don't beat myself up too much when I make mistakes. We all make them. Some of us have made huge ones, and the biggest mistakes I've ever made are actually the biggest lessons I've ever had.
Can you give an example of a mistake you've made that's not going to end up with sort of criminal prosecution?
Oh yeah, police at the door. I probably can, actually. So when I was a home manager, I employed somebody that I probably became a bit too friendly with. Probably was a little bit, I was young, I was inexperienced. Probably had conversations with them that I shouldn't have had. They were in a position in the home that wouldn't have been privy to some information. And when things went wrong with this person, they used that information against me. I remember, getting a letter on my doorstep that said, "Hang on a minute, mate, you need to come in and talk to us about this," and thinking, "Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job." So I think it's about making sure that you know what your responsibilities are and you know what your roles are, and keeping within those boundaries.
Yeah. And who can tell you? Who can help? Who do you advise managers to go to when they're sort of early in their career? Like, how? Because it's quite hard to make that judgment call between, friend, colleague, manager, and the right line. How do you? You learn it by mistakes, but how can people fast track that learning?
Do you know what? There are so many amazing groups on Facebook now for home managers that weren't there when I was starting out as a home manager, and I wish there had been. There's a chappie called Jonathan Cunningham who does one called oh god, it used to be called Storm. Gosh, it's now called Outstanding. I think Outstanding Managers, or I need to check that for you. But there's a couple of there's the Outstanding Managers, and there's the, I'm going to have a look at this because I want people to know exactly what it is, because you can literally go on these forums
and ask questions, and they're supportive, are they?
Oh my god, do you know if they're not, it's the UK Care Home Managers Inner Circle. Sorry, Jonathan, you were able to see this. I didn't get that right first time.
UK Care Home Managers Inner Circle.
Inner Circle, yeah. So there's 2,500 or 3,000 care home managers or deputies on this site, and literally there's nothing, there's no answer that's the wrong answer. There's no question that's a silly question. It's very protected. Jonathan and I think it's Jane that runs the other one, they keep a really close eye on it as admins. And if somebody does sort of say, oh, that's a bit of a stupid question, they're out. You know, it's so supportive. Good. So any sole managers, I would definitely tell them to get involved with things like that, because I'm still a part of it and still learn loads from it.
So Facebook is not all evil then?
No, you know, used in the right way, it's absolutely brilliant, isn't it? But also, you know, when I was a home manager, I did after time, I did make friends with other home managers in the area. You know, we don't all have to be in competition with each other. We can work together and help each other. So yeah, but there's some really good forums out there now to join, definitely.
Fantastic. Well, thanks very much, Angela, for your time today. I guess just to wrap up then, I think you've we normally give people just, do you want to talk a little bit about Majesticares? You know, are you looking for anyone at the moment? Are you know, is there anything you want to sort of, you know, people in the Derbyshire area fancy a career change, or look for a nice happy home where you've got to sing? Maybe singing's not compulsory, but it helps, right?
Yeah, we like singers, we like dancers. You know what I will say is, you know, in a couple of weeks' time, we're going to be launching something called Care Sector's Got Talent. Care Sector's Got Talent, yeah. And it's part of the Championing Social Care campaign, which I'm sure everybody, you know, if you aren't involved with, then have a look at it and get involved. Because this is going to be residents, groups of residents, home choirs, care home staff, home care staff, and lots of other people, you know, playing the spoons or singing or tap dancing. And, you know, it's going to be a lovely event to celebrate the amazing talents that we've all discovered we've got during lockdown.
That sounds fantastic. Maybe we can get Gary Barlow to put in a special appearance.
You know, if you knew Gary Barlow, I would be like, oh, I'm going to hold Gary Barlow. Yeah. So, yeah, no, that would be good. Yeah, I might give him a tweet.
Yeah, I don't know him. I mean, you know, that's all. Angela, thank you for your time. It's really interesting to get that feedback. Hopefully some people have got some good tips there about bringing yourself to, bringing your whole self to work, bring yourself to work, being. Thanks for your time and have a lovely day.
Thank you very much, Dan. You.